hello family. He's brother Matthew, and he will be happy to share his testimony with the whole family. And so here we go. Matthew,
Okay.
welcome to SOCO Films.
No problem.
Tell us your testimony, brother.
Yes, my testimony starts from a very interesting place, in that I used to be somebody that would intellectually and rationally think that religion was a nonsense. So I was a communist, I was a marxist, and I used to have this theoretical kind of assumption that religion was basically just nothing more than an oppression for everybody. It was just a way of getting people to, to be distracted from the truth of what was going on. And I was totally against. In fact, I remember that there was like these festivals of light in Trafalgar Square, and I would prepare myself to go there and shout the festivals down, because I thought it was just simply a load of nonsense. But there was one year back in about 2003, and I was walking through Soho and Leicester Square, so in the middle of anything sinful in this world, everything was going on there. And I remember that I was completely and totally against God in every sense. But there was a little moment when I suddenly had this bit of what I call now faith. And everything was starting to go off the rails. I was going in a very dark place. And I remember literally looking at God as if I'm looking at you now, eye to eye, eyeball to eyeball. I was indignant and I was rude, and I said to God, I said, if you're there, you, God, who I don't believe in, I said, give me back my sanity. Then everything kind of disappears, and I go about doing my life as I normally do. And everything was getting progressively worse and worse and worse. And then about maybe 8 months after this event, there I am on the butt of a motorcycle, and I'm going into central London in the middle of the night. It was the hottest day of the year, and I had every intention to do everything that was, bad. And I was going to central London to have a bad night, completely bad night. Then suddenly, as I'm riding into central London, my motorcycle inextricably locked up, and it just wouldn't, and it slid, and I actually slid and crashed into a railing at the bottom of Archway. And in the end, I should have been dead. I should have been smashed to pieces. But I was damaged enough in order to end up in hospital. And I went to the Whittington Hospital. Now, it's not a particularly religious place, the Whittington. I mean, there were people praying, no doubts, but it is not the most spiritual place on earth. And as I'm inside the hospital, 2 days later, they take me down for an x-ray, because I've actually bashed up my legs, my knee, everything. And there I am, I'm left on my own, and I'm the most alone I'd ever been. I was at the lowest point of my life. I felt wretched. I looked wretched. My parents had seen me the night before, and they cried over me, because not only was I physically smashed, but they could see that my soul was broken. They could see that everything had come apart. And as I'm there, suddenly I'm outside this x-ray room. I'm still a communist, I'm still a marxist, I'm still an atheist. And then suddenly, bang, this great plume of light came around me. And it wasn't some imaginary thing. There was light all around me, and I felt a presence so strong. And I knew that moment, an atheist of 15 years, Marxist communist, I knew it was God there and then. And then God then started talking to me. He said, come and do this, come and do that, come here, speak to this one, go and deal with those people over there. The end of the story, which was actually the beginning of my story with Jesus, is some months later, I actually had this crisis, because I knew God had come into my life, but I didn't know who this God was. I didn't know who he was, and I was in a crisis. And as I stood there, I said to God, I said, now give me back my faith, because I don't know who this God is. I know this God. The next day, as I'm walking to work, again, no kind of church business or people preaching or teaching at me. I felt this presence alongside me, and I knew there and then that it was Jesus. I knew that God had taken me and had drawn me to Jesus. And that's my testimony. My testimony.
Matthew, so any message that you might like to give to those who perhaps share the same sentiment and ideology as you had before becoming a Christian, what type of message would you like to give those guys who perhaps might be considering the Christian faith?
You know something, the whole basis of Marxist thinking is about the reality of rational thought, right? So they're looking for an evidence of something that says this is how society is supposed to work. The reality is I can tell you right now that I had the evidence of the fact that God exists. I've got the evidence of the fact that Jesus is there. It's irrefutable, you know? So what I would say to you, right, is that if you think you're open-minded about your debate and about your thinking, be open-minded when God comes. Because when he comes, actually, if he says to you, what can I do? Because I know you, in the end you say, look, I'll come with you. As simple as that.
Thank you, Brother Matthew. God bless you. Thank you. Take care.
Bless
Thank you.
Good to see. What's your name again? Sorry.
SOCO Film. JC.
Jason, nice to meet you
And
again, Jason.
I run SOCO Films.
Okay.
Bless you, brother. So thank you for your testimony, brother.
Bless you,
It will be
Jason.
hopefully edifying for the viewers.
Right, no worries.
God bless you. Take
Bless
care.
you, Jason.
Cut.